everybody, welcome to Halo Inspirations. We give you inspirations to help you spread beauty and joy through your quilting journey. Welcome back! This is the second episode or part 2 of the Rag Quilt series. So hopefully you've gotten all your materials together and you're ready to start. And if you notice, yes, and if you watched the first video, I have 330 squares to turn into a rag quilt. Like I said before, maybe you've gotten a layer cake and you've gotten your materials, you've got your walking foot if that's what you're choosing to use, you've got your machine ready, you've got your quilts ready, and you're ready to start. So where do we begin? The first thing we're going to want to do is that we're going to want to make a sandwich. Yep, we're not talking about lunch, but we are talking about sandwiches. So what is a sandwich? I'm going to bring you in a little closer to my sewing table and I'm going to show you how to build your sandwich. So you're going to want to do it with each of your blocks. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, so here we are at my sewing table. And the first thing, like I said, we're going to want to do is build a sandwich. Yep, a sandwich. So what does that mean? I will tell you that on this pile is my backing fabric. So you kind of want to organize it in some form or fashion like this. This is my backing. This over here is my middle. And this right here is my topper. Okay. So in order to build a sandwich, you're going to want to take a piece of your backing and you want to put it wrong side up. Okay. Then you're going to want to take a piece of your what would be batting in a normal quilt, but this is flannel, and you want to lay it down right on top. And of course, for me, it doesn't matter because it's flannel. There's not a right or a wrong right now. But then you want to take a piece of your topper and right side facing up, you want to place that on top. Now we call this a sandwich because we have 3 parts. Now if you weren't going to use a middle, you would take your backing fabric and place it down, and then you would take a piece of topper, and the backing is face down, the pretty side on the bottom where you can't see it, and then the topper, the piece would be the pretty side is facing up, the right side facing up. So the wrong sides are going to be together, okay? That's the bottom line, is the wrong sides are together here. And essentially the wrong sides are also together here. It's just I also have a middle. But as we talked before, you don't need a middle if that's what you were doing. But I am doing a middle, so I'm going to sit and I'm going to take the right side facing towards the table, a piece of my middle, and then my topper. And there is the quilt sandwich. No matter which way you're going to do it. And you want to make a nice pile. So we'll do it again. And if you have prints that are in a direction, this one's not. It has things going every which way, so it really doesn't matter. But we're going to make one more here because I do have my topper tends to have a pattern that I want a certain direction. So I want to make sure that it's facing in the direction that I'm using. And there's my next sandwich. So you want to do this for every single block you're using. You might only have 20 blocks. Then you're done. I have 330. So I will take care of this off camera and I'll show you the next step at my cutting board. See you there. Okay, so here we are at my cutting table. I said ours. It's mine. And I do have some of the sandwiches over here. I didn't put them all because the pile will be long and I haven't finished them all yet for this next step demonstration, but I'll make sure to get that done off camera so that next week we will be ready to roll on the next part. However, I've taken one of the sandwiches and I've set it aside, and then I promised you I'd show you how I use painter's tape. Now I cannot sew a straight line to save my life, and basically we're going to be sewing an X through every one of these sandwiches. But because I can't sew a straight line, I take my painter's tape and I line it up down the middle in an X, and I want to make sure that the corners are still available to me. And I do about 5 squares at a time on half the side, and I'll show you that next. But I'm going to go ahead and pull out about the same size and put it aside for 5 more. If in fact, and at this point I'll just lay it aside, if in fact you didn't have painter's tape but you have a marking pen, I have one that I use that goes away over time with air. So if you're going to use something like that, then you want to be sure to sew relatively quickly. Now when you line up this ruler, you want to make sure that your pen is going to hit that corner on each side. And then you take your marking pen, hold down your ruler, and then you're going to mark straight down the middle. Okay? And you'd want to do this for each of your sandwiches. If you don't have a marking pen, you don't have painter's tape, you can do this just with eyeballing from one corner to the next and it'll be fine. It's just, I'm a little bit retentive on this, and I get a little crazy with straight lines because mine might go like, they're terrible. So this is the method that I use. I do use the painter's tape, and if I didn't have any painter's tape, I will use a marking pen. But like I said, neither one of those are required. So you're going to want to do this. I do 5 at a time, and I'll show you what I do in the meantime. But I'm going to go off camera and finish up some of these ones that I have, and then I'll meet you at the sewing machine in just a second. Okay, so here I am close up on my machine. Now, eventually I'm going to pan you out. When I pause the video, I'm going to set it up so that you're further out. But I want you to see one block. And you will notice that I do have my Wonder Clips. When I pan out, I'm going to show how to pin it if you have pins. And like I said, neither one of those are required. But I wanted to pull you in close to show you exactly how this tape is going to work, okay? So, if you notice, I do have my spider. I usually have something under my needle even when it's turned off, because when I go to start, it's amazing. This angle for me, sewing-wise, I can't see a whole bunch, so bear with me. However, I'm going to load this quilt, or this block, underneath my needle, or underneath my presser foot. Now remember, I do have my walking foot, which is also not necessary. It just, with the amount of fabrics, I have 3 layers here, it actually makes it a lot easier because it has these dog or feed dogs of its own. So it's grabbing the fabric from the top through the foot, and the feed dogs on the machine are grabbing the bottom. So it's helping to guide that fabric through so I can get some really great stitches. But is it necessary? No. You'll run into some headaches when we go to sew multiple seams together, but it's still not impossible. Just be, aware that there are some struggles. Even with the walking foot at times, I can have struggles. So you will have them, but it's still not necessary. So I've loaded it up, so the next stitch is going to stitch on top of that corner. And if you notice, let me grab my pen, my marker here. I have lined up this presser foot with my tape line. And the idea, which is going to be real tricky for me doing it at this angle, but the idea is that I keep that presser foot right along that edge, because that way I know I'm getting a straight line, okay? So we're going to go ahead and get started. All right, I'm going to do 3 stitches, and then I'm going to do a back stitch just to keep it locked. And then I'm going to go ahead and attempt to keep it along. Now notice I'm not going very fast, or I can go faster. It's whatever you're comfortable with getting that straight line. Now I will tell you, if you don't have tape, the idea is that you look to where you're sewing. And so eventually you're going to be looking at this corner, okay? But the idea is that you keep ahead. Don't look at the needle. If you don't have the tape, don't look at the needle. Even with the tape, I'm trying to make sure that I'm going to hit that line. Don't look at the needle when you sew. That is a trick of the trade. We all want to do it. It's so mesmerizing. But it's better if you look ahead, because then your body automatically responds to try to hit that goal, okay? So that's what you want to do. Let me go ahead and finish this up as best I can. And remember, it's not a race. You sew as fast or as slow as you need to. When you get down close to the edge, go ahead and, I'm going to do one more. Go ahead and back stitch. Finish it off right in that corner and leave it. At this point, I leave it, because remember I told you I use a leader ender or a starter ender method within its own quilt. Okay, so I don't have an extra at this time because I want to build this quilt as efficiently as possible. So I'm going to pause the camera and I'm going to pull you out, and we're going to talk about pinning, and then I'm going to show you how this process works. So I'll see you in a second. Okay, so we're back out here and I've got you zoomed out. You've got the demonstration of the one block, and they all work the same in this getting that X started, okay? And here I have 4 more, because like I told you, I do 5 at a time. So I've left this on here. I also promised that I would do some pinning, because to be honest, Wonder Clips are, you know, just a bonus. So what I'm going to do is, I'll bring it up closer to you, but I'm going to basically try to line up my fabrics as best as I can, because the piece of tape is only taped on the top layer. So if you have to shift, you can. But I'm basically pinning in the middle of every side. So 4 sides will be pinned. And like I said, I'll bring this up a little closer. Just a second. And remember, I told you, you always want to, you know, pin what you're sewing. So we don't want to pin in the middle, because it isn't going to do you any good. You could go closer to the edges, but with these things, I don't think it's necessary. The one really cool thing is it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned, because the seams are going to be exposed and you're going to cut them. So if they're not absolutely perfect, it's okay. And we're just sewing the X's right now. That's all we're doing. So if you look, I have pinned on every middle side, okay? And to be honest with you, I hate this extra tape. So the only problem with doing this is when you line it up, you got to make sure you line up. If you're going to reuse it, you got to line it up the same direction. And you wondered why I have that tape over there. First of all, I got to screw through the table. I know that people can see it when I did other videos. I put my tape there. Okay, so I've got this, and I'm very simply, because I'm a Wonder Clip person, look, see, you got to make sure you grab all three. Huh. All right. So you want to line them up, you know, as close as possible. If you get them perfect, even better. But perfect is not necessary. It's one of the great things about this quilt. Like I said before, it's a quick, easy project. You're going to learn some things if you're new, but there are a lot of things that it's just okay. Clip off some of this tape, because I don't need a bunch of extra. And that's important when you're going next to each other. I'll leave one so you can actually see it. What I mean, well, maybe you won't, because we're not close up. All right. Get these kind of lined up. Grab some more Wonder Clips. Future tutorial is going to be about binding, and that's another place I use Wonder Clips in. There's multiple uses. It's not a complete waste if you're really enjoying quilting. Well, if you're really enjoying quilting and you're going into it, Wonder Clips are such a wonderful thing that has been created for us. Today's a good time to get into quilting because of all the technology and thought process and things that make things a little bit easier for us. All right, so I left one underneath. I'm going to go ahead, line up the next one. And of course, I lost my foot. How many people have that happen? All right. I'm going to try to keep it straight on that tape line. First thing I'm going to do is sew about 3 stitches. I'm going to back stitch it so it stays. And go ahead and sew the next 4 in the exact same way, keeping that line of my presser foot along that tape edge. Now, if you were using a marking pen, you'd want to keep that needle hitting that marking pen, okay? So I did go ahead and back stitch that one. I'm going to take the next one, load it underneath my presser foot. Now notice I'm chaining, okay? So I'm getting some bulk going on back here, and that's okay. It's okay. But we're chain piecing because it speeds up the process a little bit. So we're going to do a few stitches on, do some back stitching, keep sewing it through. Now what this is doing is basically the quilting part. And quilting a topper to the batting and the backing is actually allowing it to stay together. And when you have batting, and we'll talk about this in future videos, but batting has a certain range that you can keep the sewing on, you know, the quilting part. It has to be within a certain amount according to the batting, because what'll happen, let's say you only quilted 10 inches apart, okay? That batting in there will start to disintegrate and it'll shift, okay? Have you ever had a comforter where you washed it and, you know, 3 times later, you've got a clump here and a ball here and there's nothing in between? That's why you quilt at whatever the batting tells you to, and that's what we're doing with the X's. We're keeping that stabilized and keeping all that sandwich pieces together so that it'll last for longevity. Okay, so I got 2 more. And I've already got a piece of tape that's in the way. Hence why I cut it. Don't know what that's going to look like when I'm through it, when I go cut. Do some back stitching here at the beginning. Go ahead and sew through it. Remember, there's no reason to have perfection. It's homemade. We like the imperfections. Back stitch. Last one. Now, at the end of this one, we gotta talk about the leader ender process. Here we go. Do a little back stitch, keep it secured. Make sure you're staying on that line if you used one. If not, just sew one line from one corner to the next. Ooh, I got to the end. I don't know what that's going to do. Yep. Oh, perfect. Okay. All right, so now we have this ball. So the next step, I'm gonna clip in between that little tiny piece of thread. And if you notice, they're all still connected, but it's itty bitty pieces, itty bitty pieces of thread that are sitting between there. So I did not waste hardly any thread. And it made it go so much faster instead of sitting there and cutting it and restarting and cutting it and restarting. But guess what? You just clip all the middles out. Now we got to go to the reverse side. So I simply pull off the tape and I line it up with those corners going the opposite direction because they are reusable. Making sure that I can sew on that corner. Oh, see, when you cut that tape, you got to be careful that you have enough tape to get to the other end. All right, so there's one. And you're going to do this with each one. Now, like I said, I only do 5 at a time generally. And I will reuse these pieces of tape until they aren't taping no more. I mean, until the stick isn't there and they're just not going to be helpful. That's exactly what I do. I just keep reusing these pieces of tape. Now, this is the other side of the X. And I'll pull one closer here in just a second. Actually, I'll do this one. So, here is where I've sewn the X. And now I'm doing the other side. Okay. Now, 2 more to tape. And remember, we still have one left. It is our ender at this point, but it will become our starter in just a bit. And see, I had the tape flipped the wrong direction. It wouldn't last as long. All right. Now, if you accidentally sew on the tape, it's okay. It'll come out. It's not a big deal. None of this is really a big deal. I'm going to cut off the spider that I started with. Goodness knows I love my spiders. They're my sewing room buddies. All right. So, I have all my tapes on all of the other 4. Now, except for this one because it's not straight. If you're going to do it right. Make sure everything's flat and you're not getting any puckers. Whew. I don't know why this one's giving me all this trouble. There we go. Oh, no. I want the corner to make sure that the corner is exposed, remember? Because we should sew on the corner. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start. Leaving that one on the underneath the needle. Do some back stitching. Go ahead and sew through it. Straight line as possible. Doesn't have to be perfect. Beauty of being homemade. When you get to the end, do a little back stitch. Grab the next one. Hopefully I can time lapse some of this so y'all don't have to sit here and watch it. I don't know yet. Whew, this one did not go well. All right, there we go. Now, if you noticed, I didn't backstitch that one, that first corner. I was having some issues when I started. It's okay. It'll get crossed later. So you want to keep doing this over and over. Okay, once you get through these 5 or 4, I'm sorry, because you left one on. We'll just pretend I went through the 4. You're going to take the one that you didn't have. Well, actually, you'll just cut to the end, okay? Leaving the last one on the table. The first one, you got to remember to do the second X, okay? So I really do need to put the X down the other direction. Got to do the other angle. This one is finished. So I take off all my wonder clips. I pull off my tape. I'm going to save that. And if you look, I've got an X, okay? Perfect. Period. Then after I sew all of the double X's, leaving one underneath, I'll take these pieces of tape and I'll go to some new sandwiches and start to tape those for one direction and just repeat the process. So that's what we're doing for this week. So get all your sandwiches together, get the X's sewn, make your pile, and then next week I'll show you the rest of the process to get this rag quilt finished. You will see the rest of it next week and be able to finish your rag quilt. And mine is called My Raggy Valentine. So excited. It's all kind of pink and red and green. I mean green. Pink, red, and gray. Because it's a Valentine's theme. So My Raggy Valentine will be done with you next week. So I will look forward to seeing you then. In fact, if you haven't heard before, I do have a rag quilt fabric calculator. What does that mean? That means that we put together a calculator to help you figure out exactly how much fabric you're going to need to buy if you're interested in cutting all your own fabric. I did talk about the idea that you could just buy a layer cake. You could even buy a charm pack, which I think are 5-inch squares. I think they also come in 42 pieces. Don't quote me on that, but I do believe it is. The problem with that is that it gets really small, okay? Because a 5-inch square is going to go down to 4 inches when it's finished. So you're going to need a lot of those squares. A 10-inch square will go down to 9. However, you could do 20 on the front, 20 on the back. That'll give you roughly a 45 by 36 inch throw. And just to experiment to see how you like it. You don't have to cut that fabric. everything's good to go. It's the same process. However, that fabric calculator, I'll put a link below. You can get it for free. All you got to do is hit the link, supply your first name and your email, and I'll send it straight to your inbox. It'll be yours for free. But until next time, or until next week. Oh, I did want to mention one more thing. If you're interested, I do a Facebook Live every time a video posts on YouTube on Wednesday mornings. Hump day. I also do a Facebook Live in the evening. That might change to the afternoon, but I do a Facebook Live. It's an opportunity to have answers of any questions that you may have. I might find something that I want to talk about a little bit more in depth. You'll never get it up close. That's what the YouTube videos are for. But I may talk about something I didn't think about, or something more in depth. Just different various things. But like I said, it also gives you an opportunity to ask any questions. Also, don't hesitate to drop a comment below. We watch everything, and we will get back to you 100%. And it won't be 3 weeks later, I promise. We will get back to you. We're here for you because it's really all about enjoying it while you spread that beauty and joy through the world. You are an exceptional human being to go out and make this world a better place. And we just want to help give you anything that you may need within what we're doing to get that done. So don't hesitate to drop a comment. Don't hesitate to drop us an email at stoffer@haloinspire.com, or come visit us on Facebook Live. You can drop any kind of questions there also on Wednesdays. And if you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe. But until next week, may you continue to be inspired, productive, and joyful, and never stop making your dreams in quilting come true. I will see you all next week to finish my Raggy Valentine. Thanks, y'all. Happy quilting.